This is the story of Miss Palma and Nags Head Elementary School. Actually, there are two Miss Palmas.
Come on over.
The first Miss Palma is the school principal, Adrienne Palma. Right now, she's directing traffic at Carpool.
This is the place where a child's solid academic career begins. We build a solid foundation right here, beginning in pre-K and all the way up. Bye.
And that's where the other Miss Palma comes in.
It is fun to have a bird named after me. That's very exciting.
Yeah, he's definitely hunting for fish.
That's right, the other Miss Palma is a bird, a great egret to be exact, snowy white with an almost 6-foot wingspan. I'll explain how she got the name Miss Palma in a moment.
And we can see today in the afternoon it's also low tide, so they're going into the small streams throughout the marsh and finding concentrations of fish and maybe reptiles, amphibians.
But the egret Miss Palma is part of the first ever effort to track the behavior of this majestic bird. Scientists want to study its behavior and find out more about where it lives in order to protect its habitat.
They feed directly on fish and other herpetofauna they can find in the waterways.
Sarah Schweitzer is a coastal waterbird biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. She follows egrets when they visit the marshes near Beaufort.
These sites all up here in the marshes are showing its foraging locations in the marsh. And then it also will show all of its movements back in the evening to its roost site. So it has a very concentrated roost site right here near Highway 101 near Beaufort. And then you can also home in closer, which we did today, to try to figure out where we might find it in the afternoon. And you can see where its movements are specifically on a certain day at certain times.
So what I'm doing now is putting down foothold traps around our basin.
Researchers met the egret Miss Palma when they captured her in the marshes near Lake Mattamuskeet. The trekking project is a joint effort between the Wildlife Resources Commission, the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and the Reese Institute for Conservation of Natural Resources at Lenoir-Rhyne University. Lenoir-Rhyne professor Dr. John Borizard specializes in the study of egrets. The traps he's using are modified for the egret project and won't injure the birds.
We've got fish in these basins, which is a superabundance of fish, more than they would ever encounter naturally. And then what we're going to do is put egret decoys in the area. The egret decoys will bring them in, and then hopefully they'll eventually discover the fish, and as they're walking towards the fish, or after they're actually feeding on the fish, they'll hopefully step into one of the traps, and we'll be able to come out and get them.
These are our egret decoys. If you look real carefully, they have a little pink on them. They're actually pink flamingo lawn ornaments that John has painted and rigged up a little yellow bill, so that they look more or less like an egret.
The plan worked. You can see the plastic egrets off to the side and one very unhappy egret near the basin of fish. Scientists handle the birds very carefully. They don't want to hurt the egrets, but they also don't want the bird to hurt them. Egrets instinctively use their long bills to strike at the eyes of anything that threatens them. Just watch.
Got his bill?
Yep.
Hang on.
Here's the bag.
Hang on.
Brian.
Hang on. Yeah, get him.
Oh, you okay? Easy.
Scientists work quickly. The birds are measured. A blood sample is taken, and then a solar-powered tracking device is attached to its back.
This is the latest technology in animal tracking. It's a combination of a GPS and a cell phone. So it records GPS locations and it sends us text messages with the data 3 times a day. It also has a 3-axis accelerometer on it to give us details about the animal's activity, how much energy they're using, and what types of behaviors they might be doing.
The egret is then released and watched closely to make sure it recovers from the experience. It doesn't take long for the egret to adjust to the added weight on its back and fly away. And then, every time the bird moves, scientists learn something new.
You can see where we've tagged the different birds. This was the first one we got down here, and she's just hung out right where she is, and you can see the red here and the blue here. These 3 animals are breeding right on site, and they're not moving around very much.
But then there's the egret, Ms. Palma.
Miss Palma went all the way up to Maine, which is about as far north as the species breeds, and then backtracked a little bit and is breeding on an island called 10-Pound Island outside of Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Now, is this, I'm figuring this is probably several days flight or?
No, actually from North Carolina to New York City in one night.
One night.
She left going 60 miles an hour with this really strong tailwind. So we think she was sitting there waiting for the weather to be right, and as soon as it got windy, with a south wind, she popped up in the air and went booking north really fast.
That's right, the egret flew at 60 miles an hour on her trip, essentially following city lights right up the coast.
Here's the island where she's breeding, but you can see she checks out this island quite often, and she's going over here and looking at these islands as well. So she might be sort of prospecting for potential future years, in case the raccoons colonize this area or something. If this island becomes unsuitable, she might remember in next year where this is. And this actually leads to one of our long-term goals, is to try to get lifetime tracks of animals.
Which brings us back to how the egret, Ms. Palma, got her name.
Now, the ones that are on the egrets, they actually have GPS systems on them. All right, so not only can they follow them using the beep, beep, beeps from the receiver, but they also can follow them with satellites.
Scientists involved in the project asked schools around the state to help them track the egrets. Students at Nags Head Elementary named their bird after their principal, Ms. Palma.
Or two. How long does an adaptation take? We're studying animal adaptations, and one of the adaptations is migration. So we will bring up this particular project and how it's used, and we'll show them the tracking. And we used it last year to help when we were studying biomes and which animals live in the estuaries and which animals live in the salt marshes, and because that tied in really well.
We've seen the video of him tracking her. He's told us where they've gone and how they've figured stuff out that hasn't been known yet.
The project not only helps teach students about the environment, it's also a hands-on lesson about science.
And we're putting these tracking devices, and this is what scientists do. We go out, they get dirty, they get to catch animals. They're working with traps and cameras and all this other stuff. And then I hope, hopefully, ideally, they're seeing that, you don't have to be, the stuffy old man in a laboratory to be a scientist. You can go on, and this could be something you could do. Yeah, hold on. See, you guys have got this down, don't you?
Math, English language arts, they're reading about it, they're writing about it, having geography lessons. The math is focusing on how fast these egrets are flying. It's remarkable. So it just spans the entire curriculum.
By the way, the real Ms. Palma is jealous of her namesake.
The students have come up to me. They've told me now that Ms. Palma is flying in Honduras.
Are you jealous of where the other Mrs. Palma is right now?
Yes, I've never been to Honduras, so yes.